We
Yeah.
all like to think that we could eat a PL pill and lose weight or make, depression go away or our headaches. And
Right.
no, and unfortunately for dementia and Alzheimer's, um, there's nothing we can do, but we can actually increase the quality of life of not only the people living with it, but
Yeah.
also their care partners. And that's very central because we're talking about our parents here. We're talking
Right.
about our loved ones. We're talking about our uncles and everybody's concerned, you, me,
Yeah.
and the rest of the world.
And action!
Hello and welcome to CineMAINEia Maine Attractions, where I talked with the folks working in Maine's film and TV industry. Watch this episode on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/CineMAINEia. And this week, I'm joined by Honorary Counsel for France and Maine and founder of Memory Lane TV, Alban Maino. Alban, how are you?
I'm very well, Derek. Thank you very much. And how are you?
Good, good, good. Um, so I guess let me start. What what is Memory Lane TV?
Well, that's a great introductory question. So, Memory Lane TV is basically a therapeutic streaming platform for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. And people sometimes call us the Netflix of dementia care or senior living. But
Yeah,
here's the thing, it's not entertainment. It's
yeah,
actually a behavioral support tools. And we designed it to reduce stress, calm agitation, and really create peaceful moments for families and care partners.
yeah. And so within the context of what you're doing, why is like this non-plot driven content so important?
Well, I'm a filmmaker in Maine. I'm in South Portland right now.
Okay.
And honestly, this whole thing started because of my grandmother, Rosette. When she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I went looking for tools that could actually help with the day-to-day stuff, the agitation, the
Yeah,
anxiety, the confusion. And there weren't many real options. So I started digging into research on sensory stimulation and memory, like
okay.
music and visuals and soundscapes and familiar routines. And I began making these very simple films for her. And then I started sharing them with other residents in our community. And this was about 11 years ago. And the
Yeah,
response was instant, calmer moments, more connection, less distress. And
yeah.
that's how Memory Lane TV was born.
Interesting. Very cool. And so what types of content do you deliver on the platform?
So as a therapeutic platform, first of all, you can play it on any regular TV, on any smart TV. It's a streaming app,
Yeah,
or on your computer, whether you're at home or in a care facility. And the films are designed to be soothing and familiar. So nature scenes, animals, everyday rituals like baking or setting a table,
yeah,
seasonal content, gentle narration. Most of them are plot free. Thank you for mentioning it. And
yeah,
very carefully chosen music. And we can adapt the content and push different types of content for every user. And the whole point is to reduce distress and create engagement without asking someone to follow a storyline. Because here's the thing, people don't always realize with regular television, I mean, it's obvious, but it
yeah,
goes easier by saying it. The fast cuts, the breaking news,
yeah,
especially these days, the complicated plot can actually make agitation and anxiety worse for someone who cannot track what's happening anymore. So our content is the complete opposite. No
yeah,
plot to follow, no surprise, no stress spikes.
yeah. Interesting. And so, I guess what types of categories? Like I saw, I went on. Obviously, I saw things like just naturescapes, but there's also classic TV and stuff like that. So, what are the kind of the different genres of the content that you provide?
Well, I invite all your viewers to go to watchmemorylane.com and try it. It's free. We have 13 collections.
Okay.
And I'll start by the last one because the last one to me is one of the most important one is essentially education and training for care partners on how to
Yeah.
use memory TV, but how to deal with the disease in itself. We have very famous and prestigious uh, key opinion leaders like Tipa Snow and Naomi Fels just advising very short videos on how to manage the symptoms. But to answer your question
Yeah.
precisely, we have 13 collections. Um, the I don't know if you're familiar, Derek, with dementia symptoms throughout the pathology, but it goes anywhere from confusion to memory loss. We think Alzheimer's is about losing your memory. No, it's much more than that.
Yeah.
And the array of symptoms are extremely diverse as the pathology evolves. And
Okay.
it can be, losing your appetite. It could be stress and anxiety. It could be losing what we call the circadian rhythm. You don't know if it's
Yeah.
day or night, what time it is. So the
Okay.
13 collections are built essentially to address a lot of those symptoms 2 or 3 times a day. Sometimes they're meant to be very engaging. So we mentioned sing-alongs and oops, sorry about that. I'm gonna turn that. I should have done that. Um, Sing-alongs
Yeah.
or games, and others are more nature-based that are essentially meant to redirect attention to a really calmer place. And others
Yeah.
are really designed to address a very specific symptom. So you can navigate the collection of Memory Lane TV through very simple video on demand, just like Netflix, so you go to
Yeah.
nature, you go to the historical, you go to travel things, or
Yeah.
you can say, I need to manage someone who is in a panic attack or at the very first stage of dementia. Um, this is how it works. We have very familiar imagery, slow pacing, supportive sounds, and putting them into something that people can actually use every day. And
Yeah.
we call it multisensory by design because we use visuals and soundscapes and music. And in some settings, we even pair it with familiar scents because
Yeah.
smell is one of the most powerful memory triggers, like Proust Madeleine moment. I don't know if you're
Yep.
familiar with that. Do you know about Proust Madeleine?
No.
So Marcel Proust was a 19th century icon in French literature, and
Okay.
he spent his entire life writing about memory and the research of lost time. The 7 books.
Yeah.
That's what he did his entire life, and in the first book, he describes that entering into a kitchen, there's a smell that comes to him, and all of a sudden, the Madeleine, which is a French little cookie
Oh,
and
yeah.
the smell of that cookie, provoked a whole array of traveling into his memory as a child. And he
Yeah.
describes very precisely, it's not only the smell of it, it's everything with it, the voice of his grandmother, the environment, the house. And that's
Yeah.
what we call, in reference, a Madeleine, which
Yeah.
is a sensory that's activated by your memory, or memory that's activated by your sensory
Sure.
stimulation. And that's what we do with Memory Lane TV, but we use everything. We use music, we use sound, and we
Yeah.
draw inspiration from people like Oliver Sacks. I don't know if you know his work on music and memory. And we stay also very grounded on what care partners tell us that they need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And just to be
Yeah.
clear, we're not claiming to treat or cure dementia. I
Yeah.
wish we could have a way to diminish, tangles and plaques in the brain. What we're doing is providing a very practical therapeutic media tool that support quality of life, reduces stress, and help care partners get through moments with a little more calm.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Excuse me. And on the platform, how much of the content is original to the platform versus something that maybe imported in from other sources?
Well, that's a good question. First of all, I think I'm the most prolific film, and I say that in a humble way,
Right.
film producer and filmmaker in Maine since the history of Maine. I have
Yeah.
produced with my company and our friends over 1,500 films in the past 10 years that last anywhere from 10 minutes up to an hour
Yeah.
to really create that channel. We have 13 collections I mentioned, over 1,000 hours of content that we've produced.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, some of it is original. I started this 20, I'm a filmmaker by trade. I'm a
Yeah.
documentary film producer in social impact and travel documentaries. So a lot of your listeners who are in the same industry and field and filmmakers or photographers know that, when we work on documentaries,
Yeah.
a lot of it stays on the shelf, what we call Russian films, and then your B-roll.
Yeah.
And we started using that B-roll to really create some of that plot-free content because it was ideal. So we outsource a lot of it. I had a lot of it in my 30 years of being a filmmaker, but I call all my friends in documentary filmmaking to help us and
Yeah.
send me stuff. So some of it is licensed. Like I work with Nature Relaxations, for example. My friend David Hutting, who spent the past 15 years going around the world filming slow TV nature relations. We have about 500 of his films. They're
Yeah.
very soothing. Some people say, "Oh, how is that helping?" Well, put on television during the news and put, a nice um, nature scene and
Yeah.
replace one by the other, and you'll see immediately with people with dementia and how that affects them directly. And some of them, again, are meant to be relaxation, and there's no storyline, and it's very calming. And some of them are very engaging. So it depends on the time of the day, what they're doing,
Yeah.
and they create peaceful shared moment between a care partner and their loved ones, and that's crucial.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I mean, while you were talking, I was thinking about other shows. I mean, there are shows like that are very popular nowadays, like The Pit, for instance.
Right.
But that's completely inappropriate for your audience because it's this fast, total. It's complete plot. It's cuts, and stuff like that. And so I find it is interesting that niche that you've gotten into, that you're serving.
Yes, it's more than a niche, unfortunately.
Yeah.
One out of three of your listeners, almost one out of two, and especially women, will be
Yeah.
affected by dementia in their lifetime. It's not about, it's over 7 million, Americans right now, and it's supposed in 2050 to exponentially grow.
Yeah.
There's about 60 million people around the world affected, and can work anywhere. So, it's really something that's really important because there's no cure. We
Yeah.
all like to think that we could eat a pill and lose weight or make, depression go away or our headaches. And
Right.
no. And unfortunately for dementia and Alzheimer's, um, there's nothing we can do, but we can actually increase the quality of life of not only the people living with it, but
Yeah.
also their care partners. And that's very central because we're talking about our parents here. We're talking
Right.
about our loved ones. We're talking about our uncles and everybody's concerned, you, me,
Yeah.
and the rest of the world.
Yeah. So I imagine uh, putting out new content is fairly important. How often are you releasing new content on the platform?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
Again, we're not traditional television, and we've produced
Yeah.
a lot, 1,500 films. That allows us to have a 24/7 channels that
Yeah.
runs in perpetuity and follow what we call the circadian rhythm, the rhythm of the day. So you have content for morning,
Yeah.
lunch, afternoon, evening, and even at night. You can leave it on and replace television. And
Yeah.
I'm a fervent advocate of anti-screen. I believe that technology is great when it serves you, but I don't like this new era since about 20 years now, where everybody's in front of their screen. I think
Yeah.
or their television. So I'm really coming from a different angle. Like, all right, this is a piece of technology. It's not television,
Yeah.
although we deliver it through television, but it's more of an intervention, a sensory intervention, and we're using music just like we would use using a book or telling you a
Yeah.
story like a podcast, or
Sure.
so. And because of the nature of the people that we're serving and their memory loss, we don't need to. And it's actually good to have some of the same content coming over.
Okay.
So we've invested over $1 million in our content in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
And we've come to almost a peak of what we've produced. We don't need much more, but we are producing, to answer your questions again very
Sure.
specifically. We produce about 10 to 20 more films every month. new
Wow.
sing-alongs. We modify it based on, the season. So
Yeah.
we adapt the content based on, winter is in Maine is something else, right? Or Christmas times or
Yeah.
celebration. We're about to celebrate our 250 years anniversary in our beautiful country. So this is or veterans, for example. So, we
Yeah.
have celebration that come every year. So we're going to push different types of content. But I would say 10% of our
Yeah.
content yearly on a yearly basis gets updated or reformatted, but
Okay.
that's about it.
Nice. Cool. Um, yeah, and I guess I am curious because I thought that the 24/7 pre-programmed side was very interesting. That's more or less where the platform started, and then you went into content, or is it the other way around?
No, this is a good question, Derek. Thank you. No, we started with a few films and
Okay.
using the music and everything. But then when I arrived in Maine, and again, I am so grateful for being a Maine film producer, for living here, and for the community in Maine all over. We have one of the most aging and the actually oldest senior living population in
Yeah.
the whole nation. So um, when we started to work, and we've worked with the most prestigious, institutions, research institutions over the past 10 years. And one of my first partner here in Maine was the Cedars, and they were
Yeah.
extraordinary and still are. I highly recommend them. But we've worked with them for a couple of years and their team to see how we could adapt and create more content for them. And then I realized very quickly that CNA and nurses, for example,
Yeah.
um, uh, didn't have as much time as occupational therapist or what we call the director of activities, which you would be using it for sing-alongs. And we would make, for example, an apple pie, and they would bring apple tools and engage the residents and use this.
Yeah.
This is what occupational therapists do. But CNA and nurses, they have a lot of things to do throughout the day. They don't have time to play around and choose the content. So
Yeah.
that's when we decided, you know what, we have enough content now. We're going to make a 24/7 channel. So it's as simple as saying, hey, Siri, or,
Yeah.
whoever it is that you're speaking to, turn on Memory Lane TV. And
Yeah.
it just, that the content is going to be there for you, that it's going to be appropriate, and
Yeah.
it's going to be good, and it works. So that's how that 24/7 channel, and we adapted based on the time zone. So we have
Okay.
different time zones, of course, if you so it starts and it runs 24/7. And at lunchtime, we're going to be able to incentivize appetite, for example,
Right.
through beautiful, yeah,
Sure.
content.
Interesting. Um, there's also the ability to kind of create a personal film with through the service. Is that correct?
Not only that's correct, but that's also one of the most important feature. So
Yeah.
there are two levels of doing something like that. The first one is what we do automatically. When you register on Memory Lane TV,
Yeah.
you're able to answer a quick, sort of survey, sensory survey, to identify who you're uh, surveying, who you're
Yeah.
working with. And based on their age, we are going to be the type of music that they listen to, where they grew up. We're going to be
Sure.
able to push different types of content. So if you grew up in Maine with a golden retriever in the 40s or 50s and you're a veteran,
Yeah.
we're going to push different types of content. But, and that's very important, we
Yeah.
can also, I have a production company called Dreamland Technology, and this is how this started in Maine. We can also produce very specific content for every single individual. So we work with families and they provide us their own media, their own films, their own history. We interview family members and we create anywhere, sometimes 20-minute films up to an hour.
Yeah.
And those films are used by people who have Alzheimer's. They're the epicenter of their life for the last years with their
Yeah.
parents, because they watch it over and over and over again. And that piece of history not only is a legacy, but creates a very familiar environment,
Yeah.
because we use some of our content and some of their content, and it becomes a conversational piece with your mom. So all of a sudden, you're going to play her favorite song, like her favorite song, and she's
Right.
going to start drumming or singing, or
Yeah.
you're going to put Uncle Joe on it, and she has no idea who Uncle Joe is, even if it's her brother. But
Yeah.
she's been seeing it over and over every day, and instead of saying, "Oh, of course you remember Uncle Joe's," she'll be, Uncle Joe's name will be underneath, by the way,
Yeah.
this picture. So she said, "Oh, that's Joe." And so anyway, I said, "Yeah, Mom, that's Joe." And people, you have no idea how many people um, leave us testimonials saying, "You've saved the last year with my
Yeah.
mother. We found her again. It was just magical." So the personalization of our content for each individual is also very unique and very important.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's just looking. I mean, I browsed quite a bit, and I mean, it's amazing. I feel like what's out there for what you're doing, and it's a lot of people are affected, like you said. Even if you don't end up having it, you are affected by dementia or Alzheimer's. Most people are going to be, so it's just a huge resources. Um, so what's the URL, or where can folks get more information? What you know, how how do they get more information about Memory Lane TV?
Yeah, so it's very simple. First of all, if you go in any search engine, you type Memory Lane TV, will be
Yeah.
the very first one, and then you click and you follow the links. We have a couple of websites. The platform can be found at watchmemorylane.com,
Okay.
watchmemorylane.com. But here's where we need help, Derek, and this is why I wanted to, and I was excited to get on your podcast today.
Yeah.
We're pivoting this year because most of our research and funding in 2025 was literally cut down and canceled by the new administration.
Okay.
So we had to let go a lot of our people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's sort of saddening to see that, our own parents, our own senior living communities are suffering deeply from those budget cuts.
Yeah.
So I turned to my board, and we've decided to create the Memory Lane Foundation with a very
Okay.
big goal. We want to make Memory Lane TV a public good. So family and care communities can access it no matter their income. So
Okay.
in 2026, we're asking philanthropy and partners to help us keep this alive and scale it up. And this could mean sponsorship, underwriting access for communities, connecting us with the right people, or
Yeah.
just helping us get the word out like you're doing today.
Sure.
So if you're a philanthropist listening to us, a foundation leader, a
Yeah.
healthcare decision maker, or just someone who cares about families affected by dementia, please reach out. We're building something practical that people can use right now, today, and we need help.
Okay. Great. Yes. Absolutely. Um, Can I ask you, have you always been interested in like media and film production?
Well, I started being a photographer when I was 13, developing my own photography, black and white.
Yeah.
And then I went to a business school in Paris. My father wanted me to be a businessman
Okay.
or an entrepreneur, and but my first job was to work for a production company in Paris, and
Okay.
it gave me the bug. So I became a young film director in my early 20s, and
Yeah.
I'm mid 50s now. And I've only done that my entire life. I've been producing content. I've been traveling around the world, essentially documenting as a documentary filmmaker what I saw,
Yeah.
and being a media and visual storyteller, which has been extraordinary, enriching in my life.
Huh. And so it sounds like you obviously were born and grew up in France. Um, where at that time was most of the media you were consuming from the United States?
That's a good question. Actually, I was born in Lagos in Nigeria.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
I didn't. I was born in Bourges in France, but I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria.
Okay.
When I was about 6 years old, my father moved there, and most of my early childhood memories were in Lagos, which is a country in the middle of Africa, so near the equator, very different. That's
Yeah.
where I've identified myself as a sort of a world citizen.
Yeah.
And so most of the music and the content that we were digesting in the mid 70s, is the era of Bob Marley's and disco, Yes was of all sorts of origins. No, not only
Yeah.
American music. And in France, we have a law to
Okay.
protect French songs, for example, content. 50% of our everything that we listen to on the radio has to be French. So
Sure.
I was listening to French radio, to French podcasts, all sorts of things. But I was also listening to Marianne Makeba and Bob Marley
Yeah.
and English pop, and so it was very varied. And I've continued up to this day to have a very eclectic, diversified, and international approach of every content I digest.
Yeah.
And thanks to technology, we can now very easily listen to a podcast from anywhere in the world or see content
Right.
through YouTube
Yeah.
anywhere. So it's great.
Yeah. And so you and we met at a Maine Film Association event, and I was wondering what your connection to the MFA is.
Well, actually, I'm the former president of the Maine Film Association. I was president for several years,
Yeah.
and I keep a very close tie with Maine and its filmmaking industry. And then when my friend asked me if I would take that leadership role for a few years, I immediately
Yeah.
jumped in because I thought, what a great way to help our community to grow and to bring more people to Maine. We
Yeah.
work closely with the Maine Film Office as well. At the time, we've done a lot of training and education for young filmmakers. We created a network of filmmakers or young filmmaker, aspiring filmmakers in Maine
Yeah.
to really create more content. And it's an industry that needs help. In France, we have a lot of federal grants, the equivalent, to
Sure.
help filmmakers and artists in general to survive. We don't realize how important artists are in this world.
Yeah.
They're surround everything you do, everything we have in life, whether it's entertainment on your TV or your couch or the color of your walls, comes from artists. And being an artist is a very difficult thing. You cannot survive. It's not a 9 to 5 job. And
Yeah.
it's really hard unless you have a support system around you and parents who believe in you, instead of saying you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer, you should be X, Y, or Z, to
Yeah.
stay an artist. And I'm very thankful that I grew up in France, and most of my career for many years, even though I came to Maine every single summer of most of my entire life up in Acadia and Swans Island.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know that region of the world very well. I'm very thankful that in Europe we have a support system that helps creativity. Fun fact, and not fun facts actually, but the only surviving cinema industry in Europe is the French industry
Oh,
because of those public funding. I mean, there is a few trickles, in
sure.
Italy and Spain, but most of the strong films and indie films that come because they're supported by the government,
Yeah.
and Hollywood and their blockbusters have not invaded everything because they're supported. So I'm a fervent advocate of people, helping artists. If you have an artist in your family, help them,
Yeah.
help them change the world, help them bring that vision to life. And that's a long way to answer your questions of how I got involved with the MFA, but it's a great organization.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Um, so as a consumer of content from around the world, is there anything either that you're seeing today or is upcoming that you're excited about?
Um, I would take that question and turn it around. What
Oh,
I'm really not excited about is the afflux of information and so-called fake news
yeah.
that we see everywhere, which is extremely depressing. And I'm very concerned for the upcoming and the new generations living in a world where it's really hard to, discern what's true from what's not true. And the evolution of AI and what's happening is going to make this even more difficult.
Yeah.
The war around the world coming into our living room instantly, the geopolitical matters. I'm a diplomat as well. You mentioned it in the beginning of this talk. So I'm
Yeah.
very much aware of what's going on. And sure, there are lots of things that are great, to propaganda around love and working and being together
Yeah.
and fighting against war, to me is exciting, but not in the way of entertaining. I think it's really important. If I have one answer to that, or is like pick and choose where you get your information from, and diversify it. Yes, from a lot of sources. We have this luxury in our beautiful country in America to be able to access this in a democracy and access information wherever it is. So use it and diversify your everything and be a journalist. Just like good doctors are a good detective, good citizens are good detectives. Don't believe what you see, and go to major sources and accredited journalists who do a good job. Listen to, this is what I'm excited about, is about the dichotomy. There's a lot of bad, but there's a lot of good. There's a lot of hope. There's a lot of love, and there's a lot of hatred. So let's contribute our own little level to do whatever we can to make this world a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. And the final thing is, we mentioned it slightly, but another piece of who you are is that you're Honorary Consul of France in Maine. And so I'm interested, what does that mean, and how did that come about?
Well, yes, I am a diplomat, and I'm very honored to be the Honorary Consul of France in Maine. I've been on that role for about 6 years now, which means that I essentially represent the French government in our beautiful state of Maine. My boss is the General Consul in Boston, which represent all New England. His boss is the French ambassador, and his boss is the French president, and hence some of the content when I do official calls here. But my role is threefold. It's really to, first of all, represent and help all the French people that are either in Maine or are coming through Maine, because a lot of people travel to Maine for vacation, which is a great state. Come, is to develop cultural ties between French and Maine. And for that, for example, I started a film festival called the Champlain Film Festival at the Portland Museum of Art every year with the French, the Alliance Française du Maine, where I'm on the board as well. This is our 4th edition. It's always full. It's in October. And we bring a lot of Francophone film. It's not only French, it's Francophone film. But the Champlain Film Festival, again, Google it, you'll find it. Come at the PMA and listen to it. Is one of the things. And lastly, my work is to help economic ties. So we're helping more companies come to Maine, whether they're French or Francophone, from Canada, but essentially from France, from New England, everywhere, and says, hey, we have a great community here, lots of talent, come to Maine. And so we're organizing, networking events. We work with the commerce, the Chamber of Commerce, and all the economic actor of Maine, of course, the governor and her team, and every county to really help out the Franco Center, for example, to help out as many community, because in Maine, as you know, we have an extremely rich history of France. Acadia used to be part of the Nouvelle France a long time ago. So there are really strong ties, not only with Canada, and historically a lot of the people from Canada came to Maine, but also with France. So I think it's really important to keep that alive, even though a few decades ago, people were not allowed to speak French, but now it's sort of part of our heritage. 1 out of 3 Mainers actually has a French or a Francophone heritage from Canada. So we should be very proud of that. So this is part of our diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My wife is one of them. Her mother is born in Canada and became a U.S. citizen a few years ago. Now I don't remember how many, but yeah, great. Well, Alban, I really again want to thank you for agreeing to come on. It was fascinating. The service, the Memory Lane TV, it's a fascinating thing. I'd never thought of needing that type of support for both people with dementia, Alzheimer's, and the caregivers, and so it's really serving something special. And I'm really happy to have talked with you today.
Well, thank you very much. It was really, I'm always happy to talk about it. And I want to leave people, again, my call for action was through all philanthropists, foundation leaders,
Yeah.
just someone, again, who cares for a family. Uh, because, again, dementia shrinks someone's world. We know that. And
Yeah.
our mission is really to widen it back out, through calmer moments and familiar beauty and tools that caregivers can actually use. And if we can make MLTV free and
Yeah.
accessible as a public good, we can reduce stress for families at a real scale nationwide. We're talking about 7 million people. So please reach
Yeah.
out back and spread the news. Anybody can help by sharing that podcast or
Sure.
just watch memorylane.com.
Perfect. Yeah. And so what's the easiest way for people to help or find out if they can help is to just go to Memory Lane TV, and then obviously you have links to the foundation there as well that people can get into.
Please reach out, and we'll make sure that no matter who you are, what you can do, you can contribute to that public
Yeah.
good, whether it's 10 seconds to share this on your social media,
Yeah.
or if you're a philanthropist and want to put your name out there and help us out, to associate even your company or
Sure.
and make this a main venture, help our main venture to transform dementia and Alzheimer's nationally. Please
Yeah.
do reach out. Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Goodbye. Au revoir.
CineMAINEia is hosted and produced by Derek Brown, Mike Pritchard, and Nick Costigan. Editing and sound design by Bud and Bird Media. Email us at mainfilmpod@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram @CineMAINEia.
All right. Well, see you later.